Hey guys, it's me Kevin, and today I am going to be predicting the AFL winners for round 6 of the AFL season, which is an interesting round because it is the first round in VFL AFL history where 1, there are no games being played in Victoria, and 2, none of the home teams are playing in their home state. So all games are at neutral grounds. It's a very interesting round this round. But I'll be predicting the winners in this weird round. Anyway, so on Thursday night, we head up to GMHBA Stadium. SCG, where Geelong play Brisbane. Do we call them the Sydney Cats now? Anyway, I'll be tipping Brisbane because Geelong, they seem to be all right, but I feel like Brisbane, they really impressed against the previously unbeaten Port last week. I feel like they've got some really good players in that side. Like, they've probably got the best midfield with Neil, Lyons, McGluggage, Barry, all those players in the midfield. They've got Andrews in the back. And they've also got Cameron in the forward line who's playing very well. I think, honestly, Brisbane are the team to beat right now. They some could say about their quality of opponents, yes, but I think overall Brisbane have done a lot to impress thus far, and I think Brisbane will outclass Geelong. Friday night is Collingwood versus Hawthorn. Collingwood seem to have a lot of problems. We had that side bottom incident. I always keep saying steel bottom for some reason. We had that side bottom incident where he got suspended for 4 weeks. Also, DeGoey won't be playing because of that assault, unless, obviously he passes 2 drug tests in time, but I highly doubt it. So I think DeGoey will be out as well. So, honestly, I think Hawthorn, despite last week, I think they'll win. Look, they were playing GWS. I feel like GWS were a bit too strong against the Hawks, but I feel like the Hawks, last time they lost, they responded well against Richmond, and I feel like they'll do the same against Collingwood, who are in massive trouble. Also note that Hawthorn have been in Sydney for a couple of days longer as well, and they had some practice at Giant Stadium, so but given that Hawthorn seem to be a lot more stable and have a lot more going for them compared to a depleted Collingwood side, I think Hawthorn will win. So, Fremantle wrap up their hub against St Kilda. I think it's self-explanatory. Fremantle very unskillful against Adelaide. St Kilda, they played very well. They've been showing a lot of class in their last few weeks, and I think they're an exciting team to watch. So, I think St Kilda will easily beat Fremantle up at Metricon Stadium. On Saturday afternoon, the Eagles play Adelaide. Which will also be the last for both the Eagles and Adelaide up in Queensland. I think the Eagles will win. They proved me wrong last week. I put Sydney, and I was hoping the Eagles would prove me wrong, and I'm happy to say they did. So I'll be tipping the Eagles again. I'll give them a chance. I'll give them a shot against Adelaide, because Adelaide, they just don't seem to want to win. Fremantle, as bad as they were, still were able to beat Adelaide. So, yeah, Adelaide just don't want to win. The Eagles, yeah, if they're flat track bullies, they'll be better than being the worst team, I guess. So I think the Eagles have got an opportunity to square the ledger there and beat Adelaide. On Saturday afternoon at Giant Stadium, Melbourne versus Gold Coast. I'm tipping Gold Coast. They were good for a couple of quarters against Geelong over the weekend. It's just that they got exhausted in the end. I don't think, though, the same issue will be against Melbourne, because Melbourne, they're just dysfunctional. They can't function. Even if Melbourne dominate the game, they're going to be kicking behind after behind after behind. So you could have Melbourne scoring an extra 12 scoring shots and they'd probably still lose. So Melbourne very dysfunctional right now, especially in their forward line. Gold Coast, if they bring the same effort they have been in the past few weeks, I think Gold Coast will still win. That's despite the fact that Rao's out, but I think we saw from the second and third quarters that they don't necessarily need Rao to be competitive for Suns. So, I think the Suns will beat Melbourne. And to be honest, if Gold Coast want to do well, these are the sort of teams they should be beating. So I'll give them a shot, and I think they'll beat Melbourne. Also on Saturday night, Essendon versus North Melbourne. Essendon seem to be impressing me. They should have been 5-0. They should have been on top of the ladder undefeated if it hadn't been for some certain guy deciding to go to show homes. Anyway, so I think Essendon will continue their good form against North despite Stringer being out. I feel like they've got a good midfield, they've got a pretty mature team, to be honest. I know they've been inconsistent in the last few years, but let's face it, they've made finals on 2 of those occasions. So I feel like they'll improve this year, given what we saw last week against Collingwood. North weren't that impressive, to be honest. They were comprehensively beaten by the Dogs last week. They can be competitive at times, but they're not consistent. I can see more upside in Essendon than I can in the Kangaroos, and that's why I'll be tipping Essendon. On Sunday afternoon, GWS versus Port Adelaide. Oh, geez, this is going to be a tight match. I said it last week and it turned out to be a blowout, but to be honest, it was almost going to be a tight match if you remove those 5 goals. Well, Brisbane would have only won by a couple of points. And last year, what a tight game it was. It ultimately blocked Port Adelaide out of finals. GWS won by a point. I can see the same happening this weekend. It's going to be a very tight match, and GWS will just hold on in the end. I feel like Port Adelaide, they're too short in the forward line, in my opinion. And when you're coming up against Haynes, I'm not sure how Davis is going at the moment, but especially Haynes at the moment. He got 115 in my fantasy, thank you. I think GWS will win in the midfield and pretty much all around the ground. Pretty much all around the ground. I think Port Adelaide will give it a very good shake-up. They seem to be competitive, but ultimately I think GWS will win by a point. On Sunday afternoon, Richmond versus Sydney. I couldn't see much from Sydney. Richmond seemed to bounce back. They're in a massive injury crisis, and they're not really convincing me. I mean, they beat a dysfunctional Melbourne side. I think most teams would. I think Richmond will win, given that it's against a Sydney side which hasn't shown a lot. And the Eagles were able to break their duck against Sydney. I think Richmond will do the same. I don't think Richmond will be impressive, albeit I think this will be a pretty scrappy game. I don't think Richmond will win a lot of games later on, but I feel like this is one of the games that they can win. So I'll be tipping the Tigers. And lastly, on a Sunday night, Carlton versus the Bulldogs. I don't really have a lot for Carlton, to be honest. They don't seem to be convincing me right now. Bulldogs, on the other hand, they've been restricting teams to less than 40 points in their last 3 games, and they've been blowing games out. So I think the Dogs, far too good defensively, have far too much. They've got far too much power up the ground as well. Carlton, they're not really convincing. Pretty dire at the moment. They're trying, but yeah, I just can see more class coming from the Bulldogs, and I think the Dogs will win. So, to recap my tips, I am tipping Brisbane, Hawthorn, St Kilda, West Coast, Gold Coast, Essendon, GWS, Richmond, and the Western Bulldogs. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe. Please give this video a thumbs up. Comment who you think will win down below and what do you think of this video. Please check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.